Everyone was wrong about this murder. No one noticed the mistake at first. Not the police officers standing behind the yellow tape. Not the reporters racing to frame the story. Not the neighbors watching quietly from behind their windows. Not even the people who believed they knew Daniel Harper better than anyone else. Because everything about the murder looked familiar. Predictable, understandable, comforting in its simplicity. And that was exactly why everyone accepted it. The body was discovered at 6:42 a.m. in Willow Creek Park, a narrow stretch of green cutting through the quiet suburb of Brookfield, Illinois. Early winter had settled in, leaving a thin layer of frost on the grass and bare branches hanging low over the walking path. The man who found the body, Alan Brooks, had jogged that route nearly every morning for 7 years. He knew the rhythm of the park, where dogs barked, where cyclists sped up, where joggers slowed down. Later, he would say the silence was what stopped him. No birds, no distant traffic, just stillness. Daniel Harper was lying near the tree line, flat on his back, one arm twisted beneath him. His eyes were open, his expression calm, almost peaceful. Alan thought the man had collapsed. Then he saw the blood spreading dark against the pale grass. Ignacio police arrived 11 minutes later. 2 patrol cars blocked the park entrance. Officers moved with practiced efficiency, stringing yellow tape between trees, guiding curious onlookers back. Radios crackled softly. A small crowd formed, dog walkers, commuters, neighbors drawn by the flashing lights and the quiet fear of something terrible happening so close to home. The victim was identified quickly. Daniel Harper, age 38, residence 3 blocks away. A single stab wound to the chest, no defensive injuries, no signs of struggle. Time of death was estimated at 6:23 a.m. The scene was clean, too clean. Or Daniel Harper was not the kind of man people expected to die violently. He lived in a beige 2-story house on a street where nothing ever happened. Brookfield was the kind of suburb people chose for safety. Lawns were neat, doors were often left unlocked. Children rode bicycles without supervision. Daniel fit perfectly into that environment. He worked as a financial analyst in downtown Chicago. He had been married for 9 years. He had one daughter, Emily, 6 years old. No criminal history, no known disputes, no enemies anyone could name. On paper, Daniel Harper was invisible. When detectives knocked on the Harper family's front door at 8:05 a.m., Laura Harper was already awake. She had been awake since 7:10. Daniel was never late. She would repeat that sentence several times that morning, not with panic, but with certainty. She sat at the kitchen table when officers entered, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee she hadn't touched. When they told her Daniel was dead, her face drained of color. She stood up too quickly. Then she collapsed. That moment would later appear on every news broadcast. What wouldn't appear was how quickly she recovered. Detective Ethan Cole arrived at the park just before noon. 17 years on the force had trained him to ignore emotion and focus on structure. Crime followed patterns, people repeated mistakes. Chaos only looked random until you examined it closely. This case fit neatly into a category he knew well. Early morning jog, public park, single wound, no robbery, random violence. The most common explanation, and the easiest one to accept. By late afternoon, officers brought in a suspect, Marcus Reed, 26 years old, no permanent address, multiple prior arrests for assault and theft. Marcus was known to loiter near the park entrance, known to carry a knife. When police found him 2 miles away, his jacket was stained with blood. Not much, but enough. Marcus didn't try to run. When questioned, he stared at the floor and whispered, "I didn't mean to kill him." For most cases, that sentence ended the conversation. The media moved quickly. Vagrant arrested in suburban murder. Random attack shakes quiet community. Family demands justice. Marcus Reed's face appeared on every screen by evening. By nightfall, Brookfield felt safe again. The danger had a name, a face, a history. But Detective Cole wasn't convinced. Not because Marcus seemed innocent, but because the body didn't tell the same story. Detective Ethan Cole didn't return to the station after leaving the park. He drove instead, slowly, without music, letting the details replay in his head the way they always did when something refused to settle. The body had been positioned naturally. No drag marks, no scattered belongings, no signs of panic. A man didn't die like that unless he was standing still, waiting. The autopsy report arrived just after sunset. Cole read it twice, then a third time. Cause of death: single penetrating stab wound to the heart. Angle: straight. Depth: precise. Force: controlled. There were no secondary injuries, no bruising on the arms, no abrasions on the hands. Daniel Harper hadn't tried to defend himself. That wasn't fear, that wasn't surprise, that was compliance. Nicole called the medical examiner. Could the victim have been restrained, he asked. No, she said. There's no indication of restraint or struggle. Then why didn't he fight? A pause. Because he didn't think he needed to. That answer stayed with him. Daniel Harper was 6 feet tall. He jogged daily. He wasn't weak. Even an unarmed man reacted when attacked, unless he knew the person in front of him, unless the threat didn't register as a threat. Cole turned to the timeline. Daniel left his house at 6:10 a.m. Security footage from a neighbor's doorbell confirmed it. He entered Willow Creek Park at 6:14. At 6:18 a.m., Daniel's phone received an incoming call. Caller ID: unknown, duration 17 seconds, then nothing. Time of death was estimated at 6:23 a.m. 5 minutes. 5 silent minutes unaccounted for. Cole pulled Daniel's phone records. The phone itself had not been recovered, which bothered him more than it should have. Robbery hadn't been the motive. The wallet was still there. The watch is still on his wrist. Only the phone was gone. Laura Harper had told detectives that Daniel never answered calls while jogging. He hated interruptions, she said. That was his quiet time. She said it calmly, confidently. So why answer this one? And why stop moving afterward? Cole requested traffic camera footage from the streets surrounding Daniel's route. Most of it was useless empty roads, distant headlights, nothing clear enough to matter. Until 6:21 a.m., a dark sedan exited the street behind the Harper residence. It didn't speed, it didn't hesitate. It drove like someone who wasn't afraid of being noticed. Cole checked Marcus Reed's file again. Marcus didn't own a car. Marcus had never owned a car. Marcus didn't have a driver's license. Marcus also didn't have the discipline required for a clean kill. He was impulsive, reactive, loud. This murder was none of those things. At 9:30 p.m., Cole drove past the Harper house. The lights were on, the curtains drawn. Laura was inside with family members, grieving or appearing to. Cole didn't know which yet. He returned to the station and reviewed Marcus Reed's interrogation footage again. Marcus cried. Marcus rambled. Marcus contradicted himself. But there was one thing he never did. He never described waiting. He described panic. He described surprise. But Daniel Harper hadn't been surprised. Cole closed the file and leaned back in his chair. The case had already been signed off. Charges filed. Media satisfied. Reopening it would mean friction. Questions, resistance. It would mean admitting a mistake. Police departments hated mistakes. During Cole opened Daniel Harper's call log one more time. 17 seconds. Not enough for conversation. Not enough for explanation. Enough only for confirmation. I'm here. Now. Do it. Tonaru. That was when the thought finally formed clearly. Daniel Harper hadn't been hunted. He had been summoned. Outside, the station was quiet. Cole stared at the wall clock ticking above his desk. If Daniel had stopped willingly, if the killer knew exactly where and when, if Marcus Reed was just convenient, then this murder had never been random. It had been planned. And everyone, police, media, family, had accepted the wrong story because it was easier. Cole shut the file, not closed, just paused. Because now he knew one thing for certain: the man in custody was not the man who decided Daniel Harper would die. Detective Ethan Cole didn't sleep that night. He lay awake replaying the same 17 seconds in his head over and over until they felt louder than any confession he'd ever heard. A call, unknown number, 17 seconds. That wasn't a mistake. That was intent. At 7:12 a.m., Cole was already at his desk, coffee untouched, files spread open like an accusation. He pulled Daniel Harper's phone records again, this time lining them up against every other digital trace Daniel had left behind in the last 48 hours of his life. Emails, calendar entries, bank activity, location pings. Everything was ordinary, too ordinary. Daniel's calendar showed nothing unusual. No meetings before 9 a.m, no reminders, no notes. Just a single recurring entry marked every weekday at 6 a.m. Run. No names, no locations, no deviations. Cole frowned. People who planned affairs, meetings, or secrets usually left some kind of trace. Even careful ones slipped eventually. Daniel Harper hadn't slipped at all. Cole called the phone company directly. He didn't ask for the number that had called Daniel. He already knew it wouldn't be listed. Instead, he asked for routing data. Which tower handled the call? Which direction it came from? How far away the caller had been? The technician hesitated. That kind of request usually needs authorization, he said. Then consider this a favor, Cole replied. There was a pause. Then typing. The call had originated less than half a mile from Willow Creek Park. Not downtown, not from another city, nearby, close enough to watch. Cole leaned back slowly. Whoever had called Daniel Harper that morning had been close enough to see him arrive. Close enough to know he'd answer. Close enough to leave immediately afterward. At 9:30 a.m., Cole sat in on Laura Harper's follow-up interview. She was calmer this time. Controlled. Her eyes were red, but her voice was steady. She answered questions politely, patiently, as if she had rehearsed them. When Cole asked about Daniel's phone, she shook her head. He always took it with him, she said. Music sometimes. Tracking his runs. Did he ever get calls during those runs? No, she said quickly. Never. Too quickly. Cole waited a beat. Not even from you. Laura hesitated. Sometimes, she said. If it was urgent? How often is sometimes? She shrugged. Rare. Rare wasn't never. Cole changed direction. Did Daniel seem distracted recently? No. Secretive? No. Stressed? Laura smiled faintly. He was a numbers person. Stress was normal. The answers were smooth. Too smooth. Cole glanced down at his notes. Daniel answered a call at 6:18 a.m. the morning he died. Laura's fingers tightened around the tissue in her hand. That's not possible, she said. You told us he never answered calls while jogging. I meant... She stopped, restarted. I meant usually. Cole let the silence do the work. After the interview, Cole pulled Daniel's banking records. No unusual withdrawals, no large transfers, no secret accounts. But there was one thing, a recurring payment, small, monthly, easy to miss. $147.32 every third Friday. Recipient, North Star Consulting Group. Cole searched the name. No website, no office listing, no employees, just a registered entity and a disconnected phone number. Cole requested the registration documents. The address listed was less than a mile from Willow Creek Park. Akaki, Domon. At noon, Cole was called into his captain's office. The door closed behind him. "You're digging where you shouldn't," the captain said flatly. The suspect confessed. "The evidence doesn't fit," Cole replied. The captain leaned forward. "Evidence fits well enough." Cole understood then. The case wasn't being investigated anymore. It was being maintained. As Cole left the office, his phone vibrated. Unknown number. For a moment, he stared at it. Then he answered. Silence. Breathing. Then a voice, low and calm. "You should stop," it said. The line went dead. Cole checked the time. 17 seconds. Detective Ethan Cole did not report the call. Not immediately. 17 years on the force had taught him the difference between threats meant to scare and warnings meant to be obeyed. This hadn't sounded angry. It hadn't sounded rushed. It had sounded confident, which made it dangerous. Cole returned to his desk and pulled up the registration documents for North Star Consulting Group. The company had been registered 4 years earlier. No employees listed, no public contracts, no tax irregularities. Just clean paperwork. Too clean. The listed address led to a low concrete office building near the edge of town. One of those places people passed every day without ever noticing. No sign, no logo. Just a locked glass door and a mailbox with fading numbers. Cole drove there at 4:10 p.m. The parking lot was empty. Inside, the office was vacant. No desks, no computers, no files. Just dust outlines where furniture had once been. Someone had cleared it out recently, professionally. Cole sat in his car afterward, engine off, watching the building. Daniel Harper had been paying this company for over a year. For what? There were no consulting reports, no emails, no documentation, just payments, which meant the service wasn't meant to leave records. Back at the station, Cole ran the company's registered owner. The name led nowhere. Fake identity. Clean background, no history, a shell. Cole pulled Daniel Harper's email archive one more time. This time he searched for absences, deleted threads, missing days, blank spaces where communication should have been. That was when he found it. A draft email, never sent, never deleted, just saved. "I don't think this can continue. You said no one would get hurt. I want out." No recipient, no subject line. Timestamp, 2 days before Daniel died. Cole stared at the screen. Daniel Harper hadn't been living a double life. He'd been trapped in one. Cole requested a meeting with Laura Harper. Unofficial, off the record. She agreed immediately. Too immediately. They met at a small cafe 3 blocks from the Harper house. Laura arrived early. She sat facing the door, posture straight, hands folded. She looked like someone bracing for impact. Cole ordered coffee, sat down. "Daniel was scared," Cole said quietly. Laura didn't respond. "He was paying someone," Cole continued. A company that doesn't exist. He tried to leave. 2 days later, he was dead. Laura closed her eyes. Just for a moment. He said it was nothing, she whispered. Just advice. Financial help. Advice doesn't require secrecy, Cole replied. No, she said. It doesn't. Laura finally looked at him. There were people, she said slowly, who needed Daniel to do certain things. Numbers, transfers, analysis. He said it wasn't illegal. But it wasn't clean. No. Cole leaned forward. Did you know the call was coming that morning? Laura's breath caught. He told me, she said, the night before. What did he say? That someone would contact him, that it would end soon. Did he say who? Laura shook her head. He said I was safer not knowing. Cole felt the weight settle in his chest. Daniel hadn't been ambushed. He'd gone to meet his consequence. At 9:47 p.m., Cole received an internal email. Subject, case status review. It was brief. Further independent investigation into the Harper case is not authorized. Focus is to remain on prosecution of Marcus Reed. No signature, just authority. Cole understood now. Marcus Reed wasn't chosen because he was guilty. He was chosen because he was convenient, disposable. Cole pulled Marcus Reed's file one more time. The blood on Marcus's jacket had never been tested thoroughly. It matched Daniel, but it wasn't spatter. It was transfer. Someone had wanted Marcus to touch the body, to be close, to be there. Cole looked at the clock. 11:58 p.m. He opened a secure drive on his computer and began copying files. Phone logs, traffic footage, financial records, the unsent email. If the truth wasn't allowed inside the system, it would have to survive outside it. His phone vibrated again. Unknown number. Cole didn't answer. A message appeared instead. You're asking the wrong questions. Then another. Marcus Reed will be convicted. And a third. This ends if you stop. Skymu. Cole shut down his computer and stood. This wasn't just about Daniel Harper anymore. This was about how easily a lie could replace the truth, how willingly everyone accepted it. He left the station through the back entrance. No witnesses, no cameras. As he stepped into the cold night air, one thought settled firmly in his mind. If he disappeared next, the story would still move forward, and no one would question it. Marcus Reed didn't understand why everyone suddenly cared about him. For most of his life, people crossed the street to avoid him. Clerks watched him too closely. Police remembered his name. He had learned early that being seen usually meant being blamed. But now people wanted statements, photographs, headlines, and none of it made sense. Marcus sat in the holding cell staring at the wall, counting the scratches someone had carved into the paint long before him. His court-appointed lawyer had visited once, spoken quickly, promised nothing. They've got you dead to rights, the lawyer said. Confession, blood, location. Marcus hadn't argued, because arguing required hope. The prosecution built their case efficiently, too efficiently. They presented Marcus as unstable, violent, predictable, a man whose past made the present inevitable. Surveillance footage placed him near the park. Witnesses confirmed seeing a man like him loitering that morning. The narrative was clean. Marcus Reed saw an opportunity. Marcus Reed panicked. Marcus Reed killed Daniel Harper. Simple stories were powerful. Yet what no one asked was why Marcus Reed, who had mugged people before, hadn't taken the wallet. Why he hadn't fled. Why the knife wound looked nothing like his previous attacks. Detective Ethan Cole watched the pretrial hearings from the back of the courtroom. Officially, he was no longer assigned to the case. Unofficially, he hadn't let go of it for a second. Cole had spent the last week living in fragments. He slept in short bursts, ate when he remembered, moved files from one encrypted drive to another, building a shadow archive of everything that didn't fit. Phone routing data, traffic footage, financial records, the unsent email, pieces of a truth that had nowhere to go. Yet he tried reaching out quietly. A journalist he trusted, a former colleague in internal affairs, both stopped responding after the first message. The silence wasn't accidental. See, Marcus Reed was scheduled for a plea hearing in 3 days. If he accepted the deal, the case would be sealed. No appeal, no review, no reopening. The truth would be buried with him. Cole requested access to Marcus Reed one last time. The request was denied. Conflict of interest, worried the paperwork read. Cole smiled grimly. They were afraid of conversations now. That evening, Cole went somewhere he hadn't planned to. Willow Creek Park. It was nearly empty. The trees stood bare, their branches cutting sharp lines against the fading sky. The spot where Daniel Harper had died was invisible now. Grass regrown, frost melted. Crime scenes disappeared quickly. People didn't. Cole stood exactly where Daniel had stood. He checked the distance to the path, the tree line, the road beyond. From here, you could see someone approach. From here, you could wait. Cole's phone vibrated. Unknown number. This time he answered. "You're running out of time," the voice said calmly. "So are you," Cole replied. A pause, then a soft laugh. "You still think this is about justice?" the voice said. "It's about containment." The call ended. 17 seconds. Nicole didn't move. Containment meant the truth was dangerous, which meant it was real. At midnight, Cole unlocked the secure drive and selected a folder labeled Failsafe. Inside was everything. If anything happened to him, the files would be released automatically to journalists, watchdog groups, anyone who would listen. It wasn't justice, but it was leverage. Across town, Marcus Reed lay awake on his cot, staring at the ceiling. He didn't know his name was being used to protect something much bigger than him. He only knew that no one ever came back for people like him. Once the system was ready to close the case, the lie was almost complete, and for the first time, Ethan Cole wondered whether the truth would survive long enough to matter. Laura Harper hadn't planned to go to the courthouse that morning. She told herself that the hearing had nothing to do with her anymore. The police had done their job. The suspect had confessed. The system was moving forward. That was how it was supposed to work. Still, she parked 2 blocks away and sat in the car with the engine off, hands resting on the steering wheel, heart beating faster than it should have. Daniel would have noticed that. He always noticed small changes. Inside the courthouse, Marcus Reed stood between 2 officers, hands cuffed, eyes fixed on the floor. He looked thinner than before, smaller, as if the weeks in custody had already begun erasing him. The prosecutor spoke confidently. The defense spoke briefly. This wasn't a trial, it was a formality. Marcus was offered a deal: plead guilty, avoid a life sentence, disappear quietly into the system. No appeal, no investigation, no questions. Detective Ethan Cole watched from the back row. He recognized the rhythm of it immediately. They weren't just closing a case, they were sealing it. Cole checked his watch. 9:14 a.m. The failsafe protocol was set for 9:30. He hadn't wanted it to come to this, but wanting didn't change outcomes. Peretta Laura slipped into a seat near the aisle. When Marcus glanced up briefly, their eyes met. For a fraction of a second, something passed between them. Not recognition, understanding. Marcus looked away first. The judge cleared his throat. Mr. Reed, he began, do you understand the terms of the agreement? Wait. The word came softly, but it carried. Everyone turned. Laura Harper was standing. The courtroom froze. This isn't right, she said, her voice trembling but steady. He didn't kill my husband. A murmur rippled through the room. The prosecutor stood. Mrs. Harper, this is highly inappropriate. He was going to die that morning, Laura continued, whether this man was there or not. Silence. Total. Cole felt his pulse spike. He hadn't expected this. Laura took a breath. Daniel told me the truth 2 nights before he was killed, she said, about the people he was working for, about what they were asking him to hide. He said if he didn't cooperate anymore, someone would make an example of him. The judge stared at her. Mrs. Harper, he said slowly, you need to be very careful. I am, she replied. That's why I'm saying this now. The prosecutor's face had gone pale. Your Honor, he said quickly, this is not substantiated. My husband answered a call that morning, Laura said, because he was told to. He didn't run. He didn't fight. He went because he thought if he complied, it would end. She looked directly at Marcus. He didn't know this man, she said. He was never afraid of him. So Marcus frowned. For the first time since his arrest, confusion crossed his face. Cole stood. Your Honor, he said, voice firm. Detective Ethan Cole, I can corroborate her statement. Every head turned. You're not assigned to this case, the prosecutor snapped. No, Cole replied. I was removed. That landed. Cole continued. I have phone routing data, financial records, and an unsent email from the victim indicating coercion by an external group. I was ordered to stop investigating. The judge leaned forward. Is that true? The prosecutor didn't answer. At 9:30 a.m., Cole's phone vibrated. A single notification, fail-safe activated, across the city and beyond files began appearing in inboxes that weren't supposed to exist. Journalists, oversight committees, independent watchdogs. The truth didn't need permission anymore. The courtroom erupted. The judge slammed his gavel. Order! But it was too late. The lie had cracked. Marcus Reed was escorted out, not to a cell, but to a holding room, protected, for the first time. Laura Harper sat back down, shaking. She didn't cry. She felt something else instead. Relief. Detective Cole didn't smile. He knew better. When systems were exposed, they didn't apologize. They retaliated. As he left the courthouse, his phone rang. Unknown number. He didn't answer. A message followed. You just made this bigger. Cole looked up at the sky. Yes, he thought, I did. The fallout was immediate. By noon, the Harper case was no longer local news. It was everywhere, national headlines, cable panels, anonymous sources whispering into microphones. Words like corruption, cover-up, and manufactured suspect filled the air. And in the middle of it all stood one man, Detective Ethan Cole. Cole didn't go home after the courthouse. He drove instead, aimlessly at first, then with purpose. He switched off his phone, removed the battery, and dropped it into a trash bin outside a gas station. old habits from an older version of the job, when survival mattered more than procedure. He knew the rules now. When the truth embarrassed powerful people, the truth didn't get debated. It got erased. By 3:00 p.m., Cole's name had been quietly removed from the department's internal system. His access badge no longer worked. His credentials were flagged, his email account locked. Officially, it was temporary administrative leave. Unofficially, it was exile. Inside the station, the mood had changed. Officers avoided eye contact. Conversations stopped when someone walked by. Cole had seen this before, not directed at him, but at others who'd crossed invisible lines. This was how institutions defended themselves, by isolating the problem. Across town, Laura Harper sat in her living room with the television muted. Reporters stood outside her house again, just as they had the morning Daniel died. Only now the questions were different. Did you know your husband was involved in something illegal? Were you threatened? Are you afraid? Laura didn't answer any of them. She watched her daughter Emily coloring on the floor, blissfully unaware that the story of her father was being rewritten in real time. Marcus Reed had been moved to a secure facility, not for punishment, for protection. That detail alone confirmed everything Cole had feared. Innocent people didn't get protected unless someone else needed them silent or alive. At 6:40 p.m., Cole checked into a cheap motel off the highway. Cash, no ID, no records. He sat on the edge of the bed and opened his laptop, one he'd never registered to his name. The secure drive was gone now, scattered across the digital world, but he still had copies, and so did others. Emails poured in, journalists asking for confirmation, lawyers asking for meetings, anonymous messages offering help or issuing warnings. One stood out: no sender, no subject, just coordinates. Cole stared at the numbers for a long time, then he smiled thinly. They were making a mistake. They thought he was done. He drove to the location just after dark, an abandoned warehouse near the river, rusted doors, broken windows, the kind of place no one questioned if lights flickered inside at night. A car was already parked there, engine off, waiting. On inside, the air smelled of dust and oil. A man stepped forward from the shadows, late 40s, expensive coat, calm eyes. "You've caused a lot of inconvenience," the man said. "I'm just telling the truth," Cole replied. The man smiled. "That's what makes you dangerous." The man introduced himself as Thomas Keene, not a name Cole recognized, but the tone told him everything. Keene wasn't the top. He was a messenger. North Star Consulting Group was never about money, Keene said casually. It was about control. Daniel Harper understood numbers, flows, weak points. And when he wanted out, Keene shrugged. Out was never an option. Cole felt a cold settle in his chest. So Marcus Reed? A placeholder, Keene said. Someone the story could sit on. And now? Cole asked. Keene's smile faded. Now the story is unstable. Outside, a distant siren wailed. Keene took a step back. "You should disappear," he said. "People who don't usually regret staying." Cole met his gaze. So do the people who try to erase the truth. Keene turned and walked away. No threats, no violence, just certainty. Cole stood alone in the warehouse, listening to the echo of his own breathing. This wasn't over. It was just getting larger, and the closer he got to the center, the less protection anyone would offer him. Ethan Cole left the warehouse without looking back. He didn't need to. People like Thomas Keene didn't follow you. They watched until you made a mistake. By the next morning, the counterattack had begun. Cole woke up to the sound of pounding on the motel door. "Police!" a voice shouted. He didn't open it. Instead, he slipped out through the bathroom window, landing hard on the gravel behind the building. By the time he reached the tree line, sirens were already fading in the distance. They hadn't come to arrest him. They'd come to label him. The charges were announced at 9:47 a.m. Unauthorized access to confidential systems, evidence tampering, obstruction of justice. On paper, it was clean, convincing. Anyone who didn't know the truth would believe it instantly. Cole watched the press conference from a diner television. His photo appeared on the screen, older than he remembered, framed by words like rogue detective and procedural violations. He smiled bitterly. This was how they turned whistleblowers into criminals. Across town, Laura Harper was packing a suitcase. She moved quietly, efficiently, as if she were afraid the house itself was listening. Emily sat on the bed hugging a stuffed animal, watching her mother without asking questions. "Are we going on a trip?" Emily asked. "Yes," Laura said, "just for a little while." She didn't say where. She didn't say why. At noon, Laura received a call. Unknown number. She answered. A familiar, calm voice spoke. "You did the right thing in court," Thomas Keene said, "but you're continuing to make mistakes." Laura's hand trembled. "You promised Daniel." "I promised him stability," Keene interrupted. "He refused it." There was a pause. "For your daughter's sake," Keene continued, "you should stop cooperating with Detective Cole." The line went dead. Laura sat down hard on the edge of the bed. This was no longer about truth. It was about survival. Marcus Reed learned about the charges against Cole from a guard. "They say the detective who helped you is dirty," the guard said casually. Marcus frowned. "That don't sound right." The guard shrugged. "System says otherwise." Marcus looked down at his hands. For the first time, he understood something clearly. The system didn't care who was right. It cared who stayed quiet. At 3:18 p.m., a journalist named Rachel Moore published the first independent piece using Cole's leaked files. The headline was careful. "Questions raised in Harper case as evidence suggests external coercion." She didn't accuse. She presented facts, and that was enough. By evening, Rachel Moore was dead. A single-car accident on a rain-slick highway. No witnesses, no signs of foul play. Just another tragedy. Cole found out from a burner phone an hour later. He sat in his car in an empty parking lot, gripping the steering wheel until his hands ached. Rachel had been the first to listen, the first to publish, and now she was gone. This was the cost. Not warnings, not threats, consequences. Into that night, Cole received one final message. No number, no name, just text. "This is what happens when stories spread." Cole deleted the message. Then he did something he hadn't allowed himself to do yet. He felt anger. Not reckless anger, focused anger. He drove to a location he'd been saving, a name Thomas Keene hadn't mentioned, a name buried deep in Daniel Harper's financial records, a firm that didn't exist publicly, but appeared repeatedly in internal transfers, Blackridge Holdings. This wasn't containment anymore. This was an operation. Cole looked at the city lights stretching out before him. They thought fear would stop him. They were wrong. Fear clarified things. Somewhere in the city, Laura Harper locked the door of a safe house she didn't know the owner of. Marcus Reed lay awake, listening to footsteps outside his cell. And Ethan Cole prepared to do the one thing the system couldn't tolerate: go after the source. Blackridge Holdings did not appear on any public market. No website, no press releases, no executives giving interviews. Yet its shadow was everywhere. Ethan Cole discovered that fact at 2:11 a.m., hunched over his laptop in a rented car parked beneath an overpass. He had traced the name backward through Daniel Harper's financial activity quiet transfers, mirrored accounts, numbers that appeared only long enough to move something valuable from one place to another. Blackridge wasn't a company, it was a mechanism. Daniel Harper's role had been simple and deadly. He identified weak points, not in banks but in people. Which institutions would comply under pressure? Which regulators could be delayed? Which audits could be rerouted? Daniel didn't move money, he mapped consequences. Yaki Cole finally understood the recurring payments to North Star Consulting Group. They weren't fees, they were silence. A reminder that Daniel was still inside the system, and that leaving it would cost him. Cole accessed a dataset Rachel Moore had tried to publish before she died. It listed loss events, accidents, sudden bankruptcies, regulatory failures. Each one followed a pattern Daniel had modeled months earlier. Daniel hadn't predicted crime, he had predicted who would be blamed for it. Cole's chest tightened. Daniel had realized too late what his work was being used for. That unsent email, "I don't think this can continue," wasn't guilt, it was terror. At 4:06 a.m., Cole decrypted a final file. Daniel Harper's last model, incomplete, unfinished, but clear enough. It showed a chain reaction. One false conviction stabilized 3 larger operations. One expendable suspect protected 5 decision-makers. One clean narrative prevented federal oversight. Marcus Reed wasn't just convenient, he was necessary. Cole leaned back, staring at the numbers glowing on the screen. This wasn't corruption, it was architecture. Across town, Laura Harper sat in a windowless room, phone powered off, listening to her daughter sleep. The safe house smelled of bleach and unfamiliar detergent. She didn't know who owned it. She didn't ask. At 6:18 a.m., exactly 1 week after Daniel's death, Laura's phone turned itself on. One message: "You're still inside the window." She deleted it without replying. Marcus Reed felt the shift before anyone told him. Guards changed. Doors stayed locked longer. Footsteps slowed outside his cell. Containment was tightening. At noon, Cole received a secure ping. Not a threat, an invitation. Coordinates, time, one word: Blackridge. Cole considered ignoring it. Then he remembered Rachel Moore. He remembered Daniel Harper standing still in a park, answering a call he knew he couldn't refuse, and he started the car. The meeting place was underground, a private garage beneath a building that officially didn't exist. Cole parked where the light faded. A man stepped forward, not Thomas Keene, someone older, someone calmer. "You've seen the model," the man said. "Then you understand why this has to end." "By killing more people?" Cole asked. The man shook his head. "By choosing who falls." Cole felt something settle into place. This wasn't about power, it was about predictability. The man leaned closer. "Daniel Harper broke the rules by developing a conscience," he said. "You're breaking them by staying alive." One Cole smiled faintly. "Then you miscalculated," he said. The man's eyes narrowed. The man did not give his name. He didn't need to. Power like his didn't introduce itself. They sat across from each other in the dim underground garage, the sound of distant traffic bleeding through concrete walls like a reminder that the world above still believed in ordinary causes and ordinary endings. "You're not here to arrest anyone," the man said calmly. "You're here to decide how this ends." Cole kept his hands visible. "I didn't come to negotiate," he replied. The man smiled. "Everyone negotiates. They just pretend they don't." He gestured toward a tablet on the table. On it were charts Cole recognized immediately. Daniel Harper's work, refined, expanded, weaponized. "You see," the man continued, "Daniel built a model that predicted where accountability could be redirected, who could absorb blame without destabilizing larger systems, courts, markets, governments. Human shields," Cole said. "Stability anchors," the man corrected. Marcus Reed was one. Daniel Harper became another when he tried to leave. Cole felt the weight of it settle fully now. Daniel hadn't just uncovered corruption. He designed its safety net. And when he refused to maintain it, the system corrected itself. "You're offering me silence," Cole said. "We're offering you survival," the man replied. "Walk away. The charges disappear. Marcus Reed pleads to a reduced sentence. Laura Harper and her daughter live quietly. The world keeps spinning. And if I don't?" The man's expression didn't change. "Then the model adapts." Cole thought of Rachel Moore, of the clean accident report, of how easily a life could be converted into a statistic. At the same moment, miles away, Laura Harper received another message. This one wasn't a threat. It was a link, a live stream. She hesitated only a second before opening it. Up in a secure facility, Marcus Reed sat across from a federal defender he had never met before. The woman slid a folder across the table. "Your case has been reassigned," she said. "You're being moved into protective custody." Marcus blinked. "Why?" "Because," she said carefully, "you were never the point." Back underground, Cole made his choice. He reached into his jacket, not for a weapon, but for his phone. He placed it on the table. The man frowned. "That won't help you." Cole shook his head. "It's not for you." Across multiple platforms, a file went live. Not raw data, not accusations. Daniel Harper's model, annotated, every assumption, every variable, every projected acceptable loss. Names weren't needed. Patterns were enough. The man stood abruptly. "You don't understand what you've done." "Oh, I do," Cole said. "I made the model public. It can't be used quietly anymore." "That won't stop us." "No," Cole agreed, "but it forces you to change." And systems hated change. Sirens echoed above them now. Real ones. Federal, not local. The man stepped back into the shadows. "This isn't over," he said. Cole nodded. "It never is." 3 days later, Blackridge Holdings dissolved itself. Quietly. Too quietly. Congress announced inquiries. Regulators promised reforms. Committees formed. Some people resigned, some didn't. But the architecture cracked. Source: Marcus Reed was released pending a full review. He walked out of custody into daylight, squinting as if the world itself were unfamiliar. No one applauded, but no one stopped him either. Laura Harper moved again, this time by choice. She told her daughter stories about a man who loved numbers and morning runs and quiet time. Not about how he died, but about why he mattered. Ethan Cole disappeared from law enforcement, not erased, just unassigned. He consulted quietly, taught quietly, watched patterns, waiting, because systems never stopped trying to rebuild themselves. In the end, the murder everyone thought they understood had never been about violence. It had been about permission, Who was allowed to fall, and who decided?